You get 3 rolls on this tower, and each number corresponds to a random question I have.
Okay, great.
First roll.
I was wondering what this was for. Just right here?
Right here. And it rolls out into the grass. All right, you're kicking. Oh, you got a meaty one to start here. This one's called high-low. I want you to give me an audition high, but then also an audition low, and maybe what you learned from that low that you then apply to future auditions.
Oh my goodness, there have been so many lows. I think it's the heartbreak that comes with auditioning is not getting the role most of the time, and you put so many hours and so much love into creating these characters for such a short audition, and sometimes you hear nothing back from them, and it's always heartbreaking, really. I know a lot of people who are like, oh, I can just kind of do my audition and forget about it. I was never like that. But audition highs, I mean, I think that I've been able to meet some interesting people. I had my best audition ever was with Quentin Tarantino, and he read with me. And so that was quite a memorable audition, and for whatever reason, I was able to let go of a lot of anxiety. I just heard my dog crying in the back.
He loves you so much.
I hope he doesn't keep doing that. I apologize in advance.
This is a cat and dog friendly show, so it's an animal friendly show, I should say. It is totally fine.
Okay, well, good. But yeah, that was definitely an audition high, but it's what the last couple years, every audition has been over Zoom or a taped audition. And so you're kind of just sending something out into the universe and like hoping that it sticks in some way.
The audition process with what you do, like it will never fully compute in my brain because I feel like, the hurt comes from caring. And I care too much about everything, so I can't even begin to handle that myself.
I do too. I definitely am like that. It's hard to shut it off though. But I think also acting is an emotional job. You have to care deeply about your character. And so to only be able to do that for a short period of time and then just send it away, it's difficult for a lot of people, I think.
I get that so much. But also so many good roles that you are getting and you're making the most of it. It makes me so happy. I can't wait to get to some of those titles. But first, your second role in the tower.
Okay.
All right, number 2. Oh, this is a fun one. This is other jobs. If you could learn more about a different job on a film set, what job would you choose and why?
On a film set, there are so many things I love about filmmaking. I love acting specifically in conjunction with making movies. And so I see in the future there are lots of other roles that I'd like to take on. I love to direct one day. I'm also fascinated by cinematography, although it's something that seems incredibly daunting and complicated to me. I don't know, there's so many. Sometimes I picture myself doing craft services. I love cooking for people. I respect
that so much.
Do you?
I love that, yeah. Well, I mean, really, I do think good food is kind of the heart and soul of a set, and it
so
fuels
true.
people and keeps people positive and feeling good.
No, it does. It boosts morale and creates camaraderie. When there's good food and snacks, I feel like what you said, energy is lifted, and when it's bad, it's really puts a damper on the day. But I love cooking for big groups of people. I think it would be incredibly difficult to do it, but I feel like I could. maybe once.
If you were cooking for everybody on a set and running craft service, what would be like, the dish that had the spotlight?
I would probably do some big pasta dish, like a pasta bake or something, because I think that's easy to make in big quantities and doesn't take a whole lot of time. Everything kind of goes in one dish. So I feel like it would probably be that.
It's a smart move. As someone who can't cook at all, if I were in that position, it would just be a spread of peanut butter sandwiches. So I feel like people would want to be on your set and not mine.
Okay, but I love a peanut butter and jelly.
All right, well, I have to follow up on that now. What is your peanut butter, your jelly, and your bread of choice?
It has to be crunchy peanut butter. Crunchy, smooth peanut butter. Do you know what I mean? The smooth with the pieces of crunchy in it.
Oh.
No
this
oil.
Is like a middle
Do you know
ground.
what I'm saying?
Oh, well, I always go for the Whole Foods fresh ground one.
Oh, do you?
Oh,
If
so
I'm-
we're not going in that direction with this.
If I'm eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I want it to be like the ones you have as a kid. You know, the kind of like sweet peanut butter that
Okay.
has like sugar in it. It's probably not very good for you.
Like a
but
Skippy or a Jif.
I guess probably something like that.
Okay.
And then, my mom never let me have that, but at other people's houses. And then like a strawberry jam. I literally named my dog after strawberry jam. So, and then like the white, like chewy grocery store bread.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
Perfectly fine with all this. Right now, I've been doing a like a honey flavored whole wheat bread, and then I'm gonna create a theme here, and then also the honey roasted fresh ground peanut butter from Whole Foods. And I'm a big weirdo where I will eat a peanut butter sandwich, but very rarely a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Have you ever put honey on a peanut butter sandwich? It's really good, and it seems like you like honey. So.
I do. I like honey and I like peanut butter. I used to, when I was in college, be totally obsessed with this place in New York City. The menu board was literally just, I don't know, like 24 different variations on peanut butter sandwiches. So
That
like,
sounds
you know,
amazing.
like the Elvis, like Fluffernutter, all that stuff.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
all sorts of assortments with honey.
Sounds lovely.
Now that we've hit the most important part of the interview, let's roll on to your third dice roll here.
Okay.
All right, we're going with a number 6. Oh, I'm so happy we got this. I feel like this is actually on the list fairly often. It is pets. I want to know what the single most above and beyond thing you've done for one of your pets.
Oh. Well, since I have a puppy, it's a whole other level of taking care of an animal. Like I've had horses, I've had cats my whole life. This is my first dog. It is okay. Well, the other day I gave him like this much of a sweet potato puff. I thought it would be fine, and it was not fine. He got sick everywhere, and I felt horrible. I was like Googling the ingredients on the phone with the vet's office. They're like, "It's okay, it's fine. He just has a sensitive belly." Cleaning that up, I was insane. He, the other night, like, peed in my bed right next to my pillow while we were both sleeping, and then woke up, like, all disoriented, and so probably just cleaning up after him. I don't know. It's like...
I've been a pet owner my entire life. All of this makes so much sense.
Yeah. But then the good, it outweighs the bad. But Jam is... I know I warned you when we came in. He's not the nicest.
He's got a lot of energy.
He's a classic Chihuahua attitude. He's so spicy.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a new edition of Collider Ladies Night that you already know I'm very excited about because Mikey Madison is on the show. One, to celebrate Anora, but I'll also warn you, and I feel like you already got this vibe from me, I will hit some Scream questions on this roadmap, and I'm quite excited for both.
Okay, sounds good.
What is the movie you saw, the performance you saw, personal experience you had, whatever it may be that first made you say to yourself, I absolutely have to be an actor?
Oh my gosh. I think it was a combination of like the John Hughes films with Molly Ringwald, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles. Those are films that I saw at a pretty early age that I think piqued my interest in acting. Stand By Me was also a film that I saw. I was probably 12 or 13, and I think that the characters were as well, and so that really resonated with me in the performances and sort of like the intimacy and the love that these characters had for each other was something that I was so interested in. I was like, how do I get that? How do I feel that? And with the John Hughes films, Pretty in Pink, such a classic film, but I saw that and I felt so inspired. I was like, maybe I want to be a fashion designer. And so I took sewing classes, and I was like, no, not quite right. I think maybe I just want to be an actress. But yeah, I love love those films still.
Love me some Pretty in Pink, but Stand By Me is one of my favorite movies of all time.
It?
Yeah, very, very good one right there to pinpoint.
Yeah.
So you fall in love with acting, but first there was the path that took you down the competitive horseback riding route. I had a couple questions about that. At that point in your life, like what was it about riding horses competitively that called to you? Because when you do something like that, you can't just do it because it sounds like fun. You have to give like every ounce of your being to that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was sitting on a horse before I could even walk, and so it was something that I did my entire life. My grandmother was a horseback rider, my mom was a horseback rider, and so I think my mom was very hopeful that I would fall in love with it. And I love animals and I love horses. I think they're one of the most incredible creatures. They're spectacular. And so I've always loved it. But I think just the way that I am, if I do something, I have to do it completely. Like I can't just do something for fun. Like I need to put all of myself into it. And so with horseback riding, it was like every single day I was there all day long, multiple times a day, just trying to like refine my practice in some ways. But it was also just like where I felt most happy and comfortable was with the horses. And yeah.
That's a beautiful thing to have. This might be overly specific, but I think about it a lot because I play a lot of sports, but right now one of the only things that I do consistently is golf. What was like the single most satisfying thing for you or feeling you had when you were riding? Like I always think with golf, there's just like a feeling and a sound when the club perfectly connects with the ball, and like I'm obsessed with that combo. It just makes me feel so good and strong and centered.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I've tried to play golf a couple times and it's so difficult.
It's not easy.
No, it's not. I think it's the connection between like two beings, not to get too deep, but I mean you're literally on top of like a huge creature and you're sort of controlling that creature to like go through an obstacle course and do it in a beautiful way. And so there has to be some trust between you and this animal, and you build that trust over time. And so to me, I think that there was a lot of satisfaction in creating that trust and then getting to a place together where you could do things in a very seamless way. Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of like math involved in horseback riding, a certain amount of steps to reach between jumps, and so that was always really satisfying to hit the strides perfectly and do it in an eloquent way. And so to me it was about like perfection in a sense, which is obviously there's no such thing, but in some ways there is, or you can get really close. So that was always satisfying.
I love that. That's a beautiful way to describe it. So you hit a point where you have to choose between competitive horseback riding and acting. At that point, was it kind of a no-brainer? Did you know which path you had to pursue, or was there any, trial and error, maybe making a pro and con list, something like that?
I think I had gotten to a point where I pushed myself so far with horseback riding that it wasn't like enjoyable anymore. I think I also just there was something lacking in my life. Like I wanted a deeper connection in some way between humans. Like I've always had that with animals, but I wanted that with other people. And I don't think I actually was able to articulate this at that time, but internally I was like craving some kind of deeper connection, intimacy with other people, and I saw acting as a way to possibly be able to have that, or to experience lots of different things underneath this, or like on top of this safety net. And so it was a really difficult decision because my entire life was wrapped around horseback riding and competing, and I was also on like a dressage team as well. And so to quit that too, I was like a piece of this puzzle in this team. That was difficult. But I knew that it needed to be one or the other. I couldn't do both. And I tried to for a little bit of time, and I was like, it's not working. I have to just...
It can be both. Now we got to bring it full circle and have you play a competitive horseback rider in a movie.
Oh my goodness, I'm looking for that role. It doesn't even have to be a competitive horseback rider, just something involving horses. I haven't read a script that's like perfect with that yet, but I would love it.
Trying to think of like some of my favorite movies that involve horses, and the first one that came to mind, which is funny because of the Better Things connection, is Mustang.
Oh my gosh.
And what a beautiful movie in general. And like Gideon has one scene in that
she's amazing.
I burned in my brain for life.
That.
Are you kidding?
Well, I think it was one of my first auditions ever.
That's so funny. It's a beautiful movie.
I know, and Gideon's amazing in it. And the premise of that film too is really beautiful.
That's one that stuck with me. So you commit to acting. When you want to figure out how to make a career in acting happen, who do you turn to? Like, who or like what place maybe do you turn to? Because I was reading that both your parents were psychologists, so I don't know if you had anyone in your corner who kind of understood how the industry operated or how to maneuver it.
No, I wish I did. It maybe would have saved me a couple years just trying to kick my foot in the door. A lot of trial and error, really. My mom, I think, found some random acting class in the Valley that I was able to take. And from that, I found some like super tiny boutique agency, maybe, I think that took me on. And from there, things evolved, got an audition for Better Things, and then things just sort of went on from there. But, I mean, I worked really hard to get to the place I'm at, but it was very challenging when you don't know anybody in the industry.
What was the biggest learning curve you experienced when, I guess, navigating this craft as a business? What surprised you most about what you actually had to do your art?
I mean, there's so many different aspects involved in this career path. Like, there are different parts of the job I didn't quite know existed. Like, I've always loved the making of the movie. I've always loved that, and I've been able to do a couple films, and it's an incredible, very special experience. But then there are so many other things that come after that, like promotion of a film, trying to get people into the theaters to see it. That's a whole other part of the job that I'm sort of realizing now. I didn't really know existed. There's a lot to do, and I'm very privileged to be in this position, but I'm like, okay, interesting. This is part of it. I guess this is part of the whole picture. I just never would have imagined when I started acting.
It is a lot. And I'll say this out loud on camera. You're going to have a very, very long road ahead of you with this one. And for what it's worth, I will be sitting here on this side trying to make all that work easier for you, or getting those butts and seats, or
thank
the
you.
right people seeing this movie.
We're good so far. I mean, people are seeing the film multiple times in theaters, which is something that I've been hearing, which is incredibly special.
I saw it again in theaters like just a couple of days ago, like at, a public screening, and it's weeks after it came out.
Yeah.
My theater was packed. Packed.
My God.
And
That's
everyone
amazing.
was reacting to all the right things. It just, it made me so happy to see the legs that this movie is having and the spark it is striking within a lot of moviegoers.
Well, thanks for going to see it again.
Of course. I have a feeling there's going to be many, many more viewings. Touching on Better Things briefly, we were talking about this before, actually. I had the opportunity to finally speak to Pamela at South by Southwest for Babes, and I've always thought so highly of her, but I don't know. There was just like a warmth to her in that interview that was making me think, like, yes, you are everything I thought you were and then some. So looking back on Making Better Things, what is something about that experience that now makes you say, I am so glad that my first big role was specifically on a Pamela Adlon set?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was my first big role. And when I started the show, I knew nothing about acting, what it was like to be in front of a camera, any of the aspects of what it's like to create a TV show. And so I learned every single thing that sort of helped to create a base for who I am now as a performer. And I'm so grateful for that time because it was definitely at times like a very nurturing environment for someone to learn on. And I was able to like evolve my growth over the course of like 7 years, 5 seasons. It's a long time to be playing the same character. And I was able to continue to learn more about this character I was playing, which I think was a really interesting sort of exercise with me specifically. And just to sort of continue the knowledge of like this person you've been growing with for so long. Gosh, yeah. I feel like every year I went back to that show, I learned a lot, and I cut my teeth on that show, so.
Cool place to be. I also love hearing how many people are still discovering that show. It's always
really?
Yeah, like every once in a while I'll bring it up and like someone's just, done the binge or something. And that's wonderful. Here is the thing that I keep binging over and over. You knew we were heading here eventually. Scream. I'm so excited. We had like one teeny tiny, 5-minute conversation when that movie came out, and I never got the opportunity to ask you spoiler questions. So my time is now, and I'm very excited about it. First, can you walk me through what it was like to find out that you were going to be a new Ghostface killer?
Well, when they presented the character to me, so I had auditioned, I sent in a tape, and then I heard nothing for like 8 months or something, and I'd pretty much forgotten about it. And then they came back and they were like, hey, would you want to be in this film? And the character would be like the Scream Ghostface character. And I was like, yeah, that sounds really fun. I would absolutely like to do that. And I specifically would love to play this Ghostface character because it's such an interesting, fun reveal. And it's such a crazy, unpredictable arc for a character as well. And I think that those films are so self-aware in a way where all the actors like know exactly what kind of movie that they're in, and you're able to have fun with it. And so to me, that movie also just came at such an important time in my life where, one, I really needed the job, but I also needed like an adventure of some kind. Like middle of pandemic, they were like, here's this role where you get to go to this beautiful like beach town with a bunch of people your age and make a fun movie, and you get to play this like iconic killer character. I was like, hell yeah, that sounds amazing.
That's so
exciting. And it was so much fun, so fun.
I feel like I could tell in the finished product you're having so much fun. A couple of elements of that performance I wanted to touch on. The first thing, what advice would you maybe give to another actor who has to take on a role where like you're hiding information, but you're also planting the seeds so that the reveal stands if someone goes back and rewatches the movie?
I mean, I have to say, like, people in real life are generally pretty good liars.
Cool.
And so,
not wrong.
No, I mean, really, I think that sometimes I'll see things in film or television where someone is playing lying, and it's like, okay, that's a little obvious. I think that the things that you feel like when I was younger, like super young, I would lie. I don't know why. Me and my twin brother were talking about it the other day. But like you feel your face get hot, your hands get sort of sweaty. I think that when people are lying, they kind of force eye contact in a way. And so there's lots of things that you can plant. But I think specifically for Scream as a film, it's more fun when there's no big seed that's planted. It's like this big surprise reveal. And you're able to peel back this like giant layer of a character who's all of a sudden this sort of like has a different persona. And I think that's one of the fun things about the film. But I think there's little things here or there as an actor that you can do to not make it too obvious.
I've watched that movie more times than I can count, and I feel like I love discovering like little nuances that at least in my brain are kind of like feeding into where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Here's one other thing I had to ask you about, because your character is responsible for the death of a legacy character, and that is a lot to shoulder when you read that part of the script and knew it was attributed to Amber, like, could you personally feel the weight of that? I guess either while making it or after the fact.
I have to be honest, when I did the film, I wasn't, it sounds naive, but I wasn't so aware of the huge fan base that the franchise has that I've now been able to discover. And like Scream and like horror fans and people who love horror films are like the best people ever. But I think I naively went into it. And so I remember being kind of sad because I was like, oh, it's such a great character. It'll be sad to see him go. And then I realized afterwards sort of like the heartbreak that so many people felt. And people have come up to me and they're like, I hate that this happened and I'm mad at you. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't write the script. I didn't want to do it.
As a diehard Scream fan since 1996 who always especially loved the Dewey character, like, obviously I was sad, but I knew that, like, lives have to be at risk to up the stakes of a movie. And
Right.
I feel like the justification behind it and the payoff in your death scene, it just, like, it makes it worthwhile and it makes it make sense. I'll squeeze in a question or two about that kitchen scene now. I guess, here, I'll go with these two. First thing I wanted to ask you about was doing the scene in a movie like that where the killer is revealed and then they're explaining away their plan. What is the key to delivering all that exposition, but in a way that I guess doesn't like suck the energy out of the room or feel inauthentic?
I'm trying to remember it because it feels like so long ago that I
joke,
shot
I can't
this.
even remember what I did last week, so I understand that.
I relate. I think it's just about sort of understanding the arc of a specific scene, being able to, amp up the energy or sort of freneticness in certain places so that it doesn't get, so it's not just the same thing happening for so long. I don't know. I think you have to be intuitive as an actor about how to feel in each moment and just be very specific about it. But I think also explaining like the motives and things like that, it's obviously such a heightened scene, like it's like 5 feet off the ground, but you have to find ways to ground it because that's what makes the movie fun to watch, is that the characters really believe the story that they're in, even if it's sort of fantastical at times. So I think it's just about really committing to each moment and indulging in the chaoticness of some of it, or I don't want to say ridiculous, but like the fun of what's happening and the craziness maybe, I think is a better word.
You lean into that exceptionally well there. I'll end my little Scream portion of this interview on this question because you, like, Amber is responsible for killing Dewey, but then your character gets to be killed by the other two legacy characters. I feel like that is like the trifecta there, and that set piece is pretty exceptional. What would you say is the single most difficult part of that choreography or just general scene? Because I love the dialogue in that scene where, she kind of flip-flops between like pleading for her life, but then also like turning on like that hate and that viciousness in a flash.
Maybe it was just sort of keeping the energy up because you're doing take after take after take, and I think it was an important sequence for the film, and so we all took our time filming it and filmed quite a bit. So I think it was just keeping up the energy. I mean, we were supposed to shoot it like a Friday before, and we ended up shooting it on a Monday because I got to set and I didn't feel good and I had the ghost face costume on and I fainted. We were talking about fainting earlier,
Yes, we
weren't
were. Because of my shoes.
I know, because of your tight shoes.
I fainted because of shoes. Did you faint because of the ghost face costume?
Because
Yours is so much cooler than mine.
It's really not. It's just, I think I wasn't feeling well in general. And then like the costume, it just like, it's all black. And I had like multiple layers of clothing on and it just like seals in like all the warmth. And I was sort of like jumping up and down and like hyperventilating, trying to get some like frenetic energy inside of me, my torso. And I was like, I don't feel good. And then walked over to a tent and like fainted. And they were like, okay, well, maybe stop filming for now. So I think it was just keeping up the energy, but not exhausting yourself. I mean, some of the stunts were fun and difficult to do, like the one where the character gets like, it's violent, shot in the head. It's so violent. And that my body's supposed to go this way, but like my head, they want my head to go this way or something like that. And so I tried to do that a handful of times, and they were like, nope, let's try it again. I don't know. It was fun, though.
The end product is exceptional. I think that was my number one movie of 2022. I love that franchise.
Okay,
Jurassic Park, which is what that's modeled off of, is my favorite film of all time. Scream is number 2, but the Scream franchise, thanks to the consistency that everyone's established, that is my favorite film franchise ever. Aww. Seriously. I mean it. Before I jump into Anora, I had one other question that I do ask pretty frequently, but I specifically wanted to ask it to you because I was reading another interview you did where you mentioned, I'm confident in my voice and that what I have to say is important, which is I think is such an important thing for any artist in this industry to have and recognize and hold tight to. So do you remember the very first time you felt the power of your own voice on a set? When you spoke up, you noticed you were heard, and you were able to change something for the better?
I mean, I think it's just been so much like trial and error, or not having the confidence to share your opinions because I felt maybe it was going to be shot down or it wasn't going to be listened to. I think there's some of my career where I felt sort of like a puppet in some ways, or like a vessel, but I wasn't being used correctly. You know, I was just sort of projecting one specific person's vision, and my stamp wasn't on it at all, or like my heart wasn't in it because I didn't feel like it was coming from a place that I was passionate about, if that can make sense.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think once I worked with Sean, I had learned so many lessons about that and like how to stand up for myself, and that my opinions on the character are important. And I got to a place where I was like walking onto Sean's set, and I was able to collaborate with him to create this film and collaborate on so many other aspects of creating this character. Like before, in clothing fittings, I would just go along with anything. But for this film, I was like, I want Annie to look a specific way. I'm the one who's going to be playing her. I want to feel like at home in these clothes and like they're her clothing. Like this is just one example, but I made this like Pinterest board for Sean, and I was like, I love these outfit options. Like, what do you think about this vibe? And it was like an extensive Pinterest, and he was like, I love it. Let's send it to costumes. And so I think he just really amplified my voice. He supported it and uplifted it because he wanted to collaborate with me. And so to work with someone like that, like we were constantly sharing ideas with each other. And I think that's why we were able to make the film that we made, is because we had that trust, and also I had grown that confidence, like as a creative, to share my ideas. Yeah.
What a dream collaboration. I love hearing that. To build on some of what you just said with the costume, this is something that I do like to ask often, especially when it comes to like a movie that I tend to watch over and over and a character that I fall in love with. We get to learn a lot about her on screen in the finished film, but I am curious, is there anything you came up with for her in terms of backstory that maybe we don't necessarily see or hear about in the finished product, but we can feel you holding tight to and influencing your performance?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was, I think it depends on like actor to actor, but for me, that as I've sort of like evolved my practice a bit more, I keep saying that, but it's true. I've learned how important that is for my particular like process, you know? And so I asked myself like 200 questions maybe. I just sat down one day at my computer, wrote down a ton of questions, and I just like filled in the blanks because I knew how organic of a filming process this was going to be. And I wanted to know everything about my character. I didn't want to leave any question unanswered, so that if someone were to ask me, like, anything about her, I would be able to answer. So I went in, like, very deep. Like, I specified every relationship that she has in the film, her relationship with her parents, like, what school was like for her, what kind of cigarettes she smokes, like, you know, I mean, everything. Like, when did she lose her virginity? Like, every question that was important in, like, building a person and creating her, because I knew that she was someone who was so different from me, and I wanted to understand her. And so I think through doing all of that backstory work, I was able to create, like, a base for her and who she is. Keep learning more, but it helped me to understand her, because there are so many different parts of the character that I needed to understand, like her physicality, her emotionality, the dialect, like, you know, I needed to learn another language. And so all of these things seemed very daunting, and I needed to just, like, start small. And so I started by trying to just, like, get to know her. And I'm grateful I did. I think that, I mean, I don't have, like, a specific, I didn't go to acting school. I didn't go to college for acting. It's all just been sort of learning as I go. I think I definitely, like, the preparation I did for Annie has made me want to go, like, even deeper for the next characters that I play, because I feel that just the way that I felt making it, it was different than I felt before. Like, just, I was more in tune with other parts of myself to play her.
Everybody has their own unique process, but whenever I hear about someone doing detailed backstory work like that, and then I see a character on screen that just feels, like, so full and real and like they could live in the next town over, I'm like, that's the payoff. Someone once told me, like, a silly question that they had to answer for themselves was like, is my character the type of person who runs late? Because that, like, so heavily defines how someone operates in this world and carries themselves.
Absolutely.
Fascinating. Going into the actual filming of the movie, I was reading a little bit about how each scene could be written in a different way, where, like, some were scripted out fully, others were more heavily improvised, but then there were others that just had, like, a paragraph description. I don't know how specifically you remember this, but just so we get a sense of what kind of scene calls for each type of writing, can you maybe give us an example of each?
Yeah, so like the opening scene, for example, where you see Annie at the club picking up different men, going for lap dances, all of that is improvised. And so I think, like, it was really only, like, this much, like, a quarter of a page that was written. It said Annie goes a day in her life at the club, a night in her life at the club, talking to different men, giving lap dances. So it was a very brief explanation. And it's on me to just fill in all of those blanks. And so the way that we shot that was, we had, like, two cameras, I think. Sean shot it on a long lens. I had a wireless mic, and it was a completely live set. So there was music blasting, which usually never happens in making a movie. It's usually completely quiet. But we wanted everyone to feel that energy of being inside of a club. There's my coworker, Annie's coworkers everywhere picking up guys. And I would just go from customer to customer talking to some of my coworkers. And so we shot 3 mags, so 3 rolls of film. And I think each roll was, like, 10 minutes. So we shot about 30 minutes just of an opening scene. And from that, Sean was able to whittle it down to, what is it, maybe like 3 or 4 minutes. And it's all improvised. So that's sort of like an example of one of the ways that we would shoot, which is a little bit more docu-style, but it was still within this sort of contained environment. But I think that the lines at times were blurred because you don't feel a camera right here. It's all the way in the corner. And so its conversation is so free. And the way I was able to talk to these men, it was so interesting. It was very intimate in a way. And then there would be a scene in the film, like, which I've talked about a few times, but, like, one of them, it was like Annie shows off her dancer's flexibility. And I was like, okay, well, maybe will be another sex scene. Maybe this will be like her doing the splits or something. I was like, but what could this be? How do we like evolve this more? And I was like, well, maybe I'll create like a choreographed striptease dance. And so with my incredible dance instructor, Kennedy Schneider, who's an amazing dancer and just a great, lovely person, we choreographed this striptease and came up with like a costume, and I picked a song, and then I presented it to Sean like the night before and rehearsed it with Mark. And Sean was like, yeah, we need to make a music video out of that. That's great. And so now it's this much bigger sequence in the film. And then sometimes there would be a scene that is completely written off of the page. Sean's an incredible screenwriter, is amazing with dialogue, and it was just there. And I think that as an actor, you have to know intuitively when to touch something and when to just leave it. And so there were scenes that we would just leave, and then there are scenes where there needs to be some kind of mixture of the two. I think Annie is someone who, she's not like thinking about what she's saying, she just says it. Like she's like full throttle, like she just shoots herself forward, like verbally, physically, like she's so ready to just jump into anything with comebacks. And so I needed to also be in that place. Like I didn't want her to just be very quiet, like especially in this really important sequence in the middle of a film where her life is disrupted in this big way. I wanted her to just be like constantly going, like insult after insult, like she's fighting, you know? And so I needed to just constantly be there, talking over people, poking people, trying to get under Karn, who plays Tauros, Karn Karagulian, trying to get under his skin to annoy him so that we could balance each other's performances out. And so I think it just depended on the day, but it's really a testament to who Sean is as a director, that he has an incredible vision and such a specific eye for casting that he's able to bring all these people together and trust them and let them continue on with the story and their characters and improvise, and then he'll fine-tune from there. But I mean, I think to be an incredible director, you have to be trusting of your actors, and he definitely is.
Ooh, quite a few things I want to follow up on there. First, I'll go to, you mentioned the striptease, and then there's also a significant amount of sex scenes in the movie. And I'm always curious to hear about what an actor needs to feel safe and supported and like they can deliver their best work in material like that. So, you know, whether it's working with an intimacy coordinator or something maybe Sean does to, I guess, set the right tone and atmosphere on set. What do you need to be able to feel 100% when jumping into material like that?
Well, I had never done anything like that before. And so for me, I wasn't sure what that would be like, what it would feel like. But my character is a sex worker. And so I knew from the beginning that nudity would be a part of it. Like, I've seen Sean's films. I know that he's dedicated to authenticity, and that was something I was really interested in portraying as well. And so I was like, okay, I just assumed that nudity and sex would be a part of her work because that's what sex work is, and that's what it entails, and that's the costume that she puts on to work and make a living for herself. So for me, I mean, I think I was just at a place where I felt comfortable to be outspoken if I ever needed to be, which I honestly didn't have to because Sean and Sammy Kwan, our producer and also his wife, created such a comfortable environment. We were able to shoot those scenes in like a very seamless way. I mean, their priority is safety and me as well. And so we all understood that from the beginning and were protective of each other. I mean, those scenes were fun to shoot. I think it was a very positive experience for me. I also think because a lot of those scenes, like, there's so much humor involved in them, it was fun to take a scene that could be like overtly sexual and sort of flip it on its head and make it something humorous or like endearing in a way. And so it was fun to play with those themes, and Sean is so good at doing that. We were offered intimacy coordinators, and we all just felt that it would be more seamless to just do it with Sean and Sammy, and I think it's a case-by-case basis of whatever your comfort levels are and what makes you feel most comfortable. And Sean and Sammy and I had become good friends for like a year by the time we started shooting. So I'm really, really happy with the way that we did it. It was just a positive experience because I know that doesn't always happen for people.
So you have a great support system in the two of them, and then you are also surrounded by like an A-plus ensemble. This is a massive question, and I apologize in advance, but I do want to make sure to, highlight how important it is to have the right ensemble and like an actor bringing a different kind of energy to their role. So can you tell me something about Yura, Karin, Vache, and Mark that made them, that gave them like a unique energy to bring to set and made these roles uniquely their own and kind of fit the dynamic you all created?
I mean, well, they're all incredible actors, and they're all so different. Like, Karin has this amazing, commanding presence, but he also, he's been in all of Sean's films, but that's all of his experience as an actor is just working with Sean. And he's someone who really thrives in improvisation. And so I recognized that from the beginning. And I also quickly understood the things that sort of pushed his buttons and annoyed him, because my character is supposed to be quite vexing towards his character. And so I understood those things and we were able to get each other to a certain place where we have chemistry, but at the same time, we're like constantly butting heads. He's such a funny person. He's so committed, and he cares deeply about the work that he's doing. I'm really hopeful that Hollywood embraces him, because he is a very special actor. And there's just something about him that is, not everybody has that, like je ne sais quoi, you know what I mean? But Karin he's so commanding. So yeah, he's amazing. And then Vache has this sort of, what he brought to his character was this sort of, almost like an innocence in a sense. Like a babyish sort of innocence, or like I don't want to say whiny, because the tone that he uses for his voice and the character is so hilarious and amazing, but he's so committed to the comedy, and he had to play different levels of wasted at different times. And so, oh God, he was hilarious.
That vomit scene in the car, I'm just like, I will never unsee that.
I'm so glad that it wasn't in my vision, not even in my peripheral, because I would have laughed.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's so good. That scene is so good.
I think my two personal biggest laughs are when and like gross out moment for that one, but like when that happens, and also when Mark does like the back roll like onto the bed.
I know that's everybody's favorite thing. Everyone always talks about that. But yeah, no, Mark and Yura both have like a Stanislavski Russian theater school background. So working with them as actors was so different than anything I've ever experienced before. Like, they're real method actors, not really what Hollywood subscribes to, like what method acting is, and Hollywood's they're like actual method. And so I'd never seen that before, or had the curtain pulled back in that way to watch it. And it was interesting. Mark and Yura are also from totally different generations. And so just interesting to experience them as like foreigners and also as men, and the differences that they have, the way that they've grown up. So Mark brought this playfulness and this energy like to his character, and Mark very much so has that sort of vivacious, like long-limbed, I don't know, energy, I guess. And so for him to implement that into his character, he's a one-of-a-kind person. And he plays his character in a very endearing way at first. And it was very disarming for me as an actress to experience that. Excuse me, because I think when I read the script, I anticipated it to be different. And it sort of changed the way that I felt about him through my character. And it evolved the story in a lot of ways. Because you see these two young people have this like genuine connection in some way. And it's really interesting as an audience member, I think, to see that. And also as an actress to be playing opposite that. And then Yura, man, so good. So soulful.
Mm.
So
Soulful is the perfect word.
Yeah. He has like the deepest eyes I've ever seen. So sweet and funny, but in a completely different way than everybody else. Like Mark had this sort of slapstick kind of physical comedy, big, loud comedy. And Yura had this very thoughtful, kind of like sneak up on you, creep up on you, dark, dry sort of sense of humor that, oh my God, it killed me. It killed me. It was so frustrating sometimes working with him because he was just constantly surprising me with these like hilarious moments. And the way that he plays his character is only Yura can do that, really. He brought this amazing nuance and thoughtfulness to a character that could otherwise go in a totally different direction. Like, I remember first working with him the first couple days, and I think my character, like, punches him or something, and he looks, like, genuinely hurt. Like, genuinely, like, his feelings are hurt. And I was like, oh my God, it's so brilliant because an audience is going to fall in love with this character because of what Yura's doing and how he's flipping that character on its head. But yeah, Yura's amazing. So generous as an actor, so handsome, so committed. Like he wore his costume the entire time during filming, which, like, I thought that I got to know Yura very well. And then on the last day of filming, I went to his house to say goodbye, and I was genuinely shocked when he opened the door. He, like, opened the door and his head is, like, tilted. And he has, like, this big, weird grin on his face, a backwards cap, and, like, an extra, extra large skater t-shirt. And I was like, who are you? Like, who are you? I was like, I feel like I don't know who he is at all. And it was so shocking, but that's Yura as an actor. I mean, I should stop myself because I could just talk about them so much. And then also there's so many actors who are first-time actors who have never acted before and have sort of similar lived experience to the people that they're playing. To work with actors like that was so amazing and so refreshing, and brought such an incredible, like, realism and nuance to the film, I think. So yeah, I think we got so lucky with the actors that we were able to work with on this film.
Got a very beautiful group here. One of the very first things after my first screening that I walked out saying was like, oh, like that right there is one of my favorite ensembles of the year. Like, no brainer. I'll end with two questions here. One, surprise, surprise, is about that final scene, which is just like, oh, absolutely exquisite. I was reading a little bit about something you said when shooting it in another interview. You had mentioned that the production had tried to shoot this scene a number of times, and for a variety of reasons, it didn't work out. But on the day that it did, you were in a very specific emotional place that was right for the moment. Can you elaborate on that? What was it about how you were feeling that day that made that the day for you personally as well?
I think it was just a buildup of so many emotions. There was so much anticipation, building up to this scene. I was so nervous about it. I put so much pressure on myself. Like, just to get this, I had this idea of how the scene would go in my head, which is like, you never can go into a scene with that specific idea for like a place I wanted to get to. And I just like, I didn't want to do a bad job. I didn't want to let anyone down, which is like, I know that there's no such thing as doing a bad job. Like, either you're honest and you're in the moment or you're not. And so we tried to film it for multiple days, and every morning I would mentally prepare myself, get to that place emotionally. Like, I was trying not to sleep as much so that I could feel that sort of that rawness that comes when you're tired.
Well aware of that feeling.
Yep. And then it wouldn't happen, and I would be so relieved. And then we would try to shoot it the next day, and eventually we were ready to shoot it. And I think in some weird way, I'd almost just given up. I don't even know why. But I felt like I was fighting for this character. She was fighting for so long. And then there was this moment where it's like this crescendo of emotion. She'd been holding in all of the pain, all the frustration. Like, all that heartbreak has just been like, it's like bubbling over the surface. How do you just like release that? And so for me as an actress, I was feeling this huge buildup as well. And I was like, how do I just like let that go in a way that feels like grounded to me? And, oh man, I just didn't want to let the character down. And so I like stepped outside of the car and I was like, why am I feeling like this? Like, why doesn't it feel, like, why isn't it coming? Like, I'm usually such an emotional person. Like, I cry all the time. Like, I could probably just look at you right now and like cry. I don't know. It's just, it was something that always frustrated me when I was younger, but I've learned to love it as an adult. But while I was playing Annie, I was like, I wasn't crying. I was sort of just, I had this like poker face. And I remember Mark was like, I can never read you. Like, you're so difficult to read. And I was like, no one's ever said that to me before. And I realized that I think that for whatever reason, because of the preparation I did, I was just unconsciously like in the same headspace that my character was at. And I didn't realize that until we were done filming, but I stepped out of the car and I was like, oh, like, it's not going to happen. We're not going to get it. Like, I just need to, like, give up on this scene. And I was so frustrated. And I was, like, constantly on the verge of tears, but, like, I physically wouldn't let them out. Like, why wouldn't I do that? And so I was talking to Sammy, my producer, and we were just talking a little bit, and everyone was very, like, patiently, like, waiting in the car. And I was trying to think of sort of things that I have in my back pocket, like, to pull out in my, I don't know, repertoire of, like, emotional things. Like, I don't know, some people listen to music. I think it's different for every actor. And I remembered this one thing that sort of, whenever I, like, listen to it, it like, kind of tears me apart, very emotional. And so I played it for my producer, and I was like, I think this is right. I think this is something that could, like, help me get to that place. Because it was simultaneously like something very personal to me, very embarrassing, and just it put me in a vulnerable position. And so Sean was in the backseat of the car while we were filming, and then Yura's there, and it's me. And so we all sort of like together before filming the scene experienced this sort of like very personal, raw emotional thing that I was trying to use to get me to that emotional place. And I think that it just worked, and it also kind of grounded all of us in a way where we were all sort of, it put us in like a strange emotional place to listen to that. Yeah, so we got there. Am I talking too much about
No,
this?
it's such a beautiful
Okay.
Also because
I feel embarrassed.
no, don't at all. It really is. I mean, this is something that just wows me about acting in general. Like, it's so easy to go into a movie, like, have a good time and leave. But, like, I'm constantly obsessing over the idea that you give so much of, like, yourself, like your real self, who you are as a person, to every single role you play. And, like, what you put into that scene, just, it, like, pays off so exceptionally well that
Thank
I know
you.
it's nice.
That's nice.
Really is nice to hear that. Truly, like, one of my favorite endings of the year. The entire movie is fantastic, but like, it's that ending scene that like makes it echo throughout your life well after you walk out of your screening. So, job very well done, and thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you.
We do always end Ladies' Night with this particular question.
Yeah, let's do it.
It is a question that some people do not like. I think it's very important, though, which is why I keep asking it.
Oh.
In this industry, we give each other awards. That is super cool. I find that very few people tell themselves good job as much as they should. What is something you accomplished making Anora that you know you'll always be able to look back on and say, I am so proud of what I did right there?
You know, I'm No, it's true, because I think as women, or at least this is my experience, maybe it's yours, you're sort of conditioned to like be humble, and it's hard to say those things about yourself. Like, I'm proud of this, or like, I did a good job doing this. But it's important. I don't know. I'm proud of like my work ethic. I'm proud of the dedication that I put into the film, all of the time and the hours and the months spent creating this character, because I think we made something really special. And I know that it's partly because of the love that I poured into making it. And so I'm very proud of that. And now you have to share something.
Oh, boy. I wasn't ready for that.
Yes. If you want, no pressure.
No, Is it right for me to ask the question without being able to do it myself? And that's part of the reason why this question exists, because it's also like a personal truth that exists in there. I was thinking about this because the year is about to end soon, and one of my personal favorite things that I am most proud of in 2024 is that Collider Ladies Night did its very first live edition at San Diego Comic-Con in Ballroom 20 in front of an audience of thousands of people. And I don't think in my entire life I will ever forget how good that made me feel, how proud of the show and like the people that are a part of it. Like,
that's amazing.
It really was like a next level thing. I appreciate you asking me that.
Oh,
It's a good thing to remind myself of.
Yeah.
I'm going to say huge congratulations on everything you've accomplished, on Anora, which is next level something special, and then also everything coming your way in the future. The Ladies' Night door is open anytime you want.
Oh, I love Ladies' Night. Thank you.